4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an extremely exciting episode of the Project Egg Show, where you can come to get inspired by entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Now, today, we have an extra special guest, somebody who I've looked up to for years, Larry Kim, the founder and CEO of MobileMonkey, the world's best Facebook marketing messenger platform. He's been named Search Marketer of the Year from PPC Hero from 2013 to 2017, every single one of those years. And he has been ranked the number 8th most popular author on Medium. And he's a contributor to CNBC and Inc magazine. And he is also the founder and former CTO of WordStream Inc., the leading provider of AdWords, Facebook, and keyword tools used by over 1 million marketers worldwide. That company employs more than 300 people, manages billions of dollars of ad spend on behalf of tens of thousands of customers, and it was acquired by Gannett, parent company of USA Today, for $150 million in July of 2018. Larry has done some incredible things that I could not possibly fully capture in this brief introduction. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Larry Kim. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. It is such an honor, and I'm so excited for this. So let's jump right in.
Awesome.
What is your story?
It's pretty simple. I'm sure you've heard this before. It starts with just discovering an idea, right? So in my case, I was a software engineer, but I had discovered internet marketing, like search, paid search, organic search marketing, and I thought it was really amazing. It was like I did some of this work on a friend's company, and we grew the revenues from $300,000 a month to $3 million a month. And, I was like hooked. I just said, I need to quit what I'm doing here and focus on this because, there's a lot of leverage here. And so that was kind of the initial idea. I quit my job and became a consultant, like a search marketing consultant. This was back, in my 20s, back around, 2005, 2006, and just started doing consulting work. And I would have customers on retainers for like $8,000 or $10,000 a month, and maybe eight, 9, 10 customers. So that was a decent chunk of change for like a 20-something kid just out of college. And because I'm lazy, I wrote software to automate the stupid repetitive tasks that I was doing in search marketing. Do you see what I'm saying? So like initially it was just software for myself to make my life less tedious. And then the light bulb went off, and I just thought like, well, why don't I sell the software that I'm using rather than selling services, which is not scalable. And so, that was kind of the genesis of the company. As you mentioned, it's grown to over 300 people, over $1 billion of ad spend, managed on behalf of tens of thousands of companies worldwide. And I sold the business last July. So that's pretty recent. What else do you need to know?
So let's jump back into more of your childhood. Who were you as a kid? Like what kind of person were you growing up?
Just kind of an odd duck, I think. Just not really. Maybe slightly autistic. I don't know. Just it's pretty unremarkable. Nothing really comes to mind here.
When you were in your early 20s and you decided to go into the software space, why did that Why did that first call to you? Why did you become a developer in the first place?
So my background's in electrical engineering from the University of Waterloo in Canada, and I think like every engineer, you know, they want to create something. I mean, that there must be a reason why they went into engineering, and so there's a lot of appeal in wanting to create something, and like the software economy is like a relatively simple way to create a business, and it was just very appealing because uh, it's kind of like a game, it's like you have this idea for a crazy thing, and there's no rules. It's whatever. It's just your imagination and your execution, and that's appealing to me. It's kind of like one of these one of these really big video game simulators, like but like an ultimate one, because it's unconstrained. So um, I just thought that was very appealing, and definitely I had certain ideas about what it would be like. None of them turned out to be true, by the way. It's certainly an interesting career experience, and I liked it so much that I'm starting a second company here. Yeah.
When you first discovered Google AdWords, how did that come about? What was the actual pivotal moment where you were like, this is a cool thing. I'm gonna investigate this more.
Well, so in Google AdWords, you're just you need to anticipate what people are searching for, and then you have to place bids on those different keywords. And um, my big idea was, what if I did a really, really good job at coming up with the different search queries that people were entering in, and so uh, I was able to write some software that would scrape log files for their referrer strings, like the queries. You don't get that anymore due to like Google obfuscates that data, but you used to be able to get that data, and so what I was able to do is just write some software that just crank through gigabytes of log files, extracted all the query parameters, grouped and organized them into smaller buckets of compatible 2000 keyword buckets, and then uploaded them, programmatically into AdWords. And this was prior to, broad match, really, like, basically the Google system wasn't as sophisticated as it is today. And so there was actually a huge advantage of being very precise with the keywords that you were looking to target. And so I think what was like the aha moment is that like there was just understanding how that ad targeting platform worked, and how it was choosing which ads to serve, and how it was figuring out like how much to charge different advertisers for different clicks, and just really focusing on that algorithm, and realizing that most marketers, this would be like this would be too complicated for most of them. But I think I felt like I had an unfair advantage there, just with a background in software and algorithms, and being able to do that was very exciting. It's like uh, you it's always the case that like if you're an entrepreneur, you're straddling two worlds. It's like you have a software and a marketing background or something like this. You know what I mean? I just thought that this was like a new field where it wasn't that sophisticated to learn, and could definitely use software to automate those prehistoric workflows, basically. So it was just a really great opportunity, and of course money. Like there was a lot of demand for people who had those skills, and my business was growing really strongly from referrals. Just like like people would ask the CEO, like, how are you growing your revenues this much? And they would refer them to me, and that was a really exciting time. So yeah, I just thought this is this is such a more interesting job than just being a, like a product manager or a software engineer at some bigger firm.
So you start really seeing success with this, and you start getting those clients at 8 to 10,000 a month, and you have, a nice chunk of clients. How did that impact your life as far as you start making a very incredible amount of money at such a young age? How did that impact you as a person?
Oh, I mean, that it's crazy, because I, up until then, I had just started working very recently, but like, like my parents were very, they weren't, we didn't have a wealthy lifestyle at all. It was very tough actually. And, suddenly you're making all this money and it's not even that hard. So initially, I was treating it more of a piggy bank. So like you'd get all this business revenue and you would just dividend or pay yourself a crazy salary. And I was like buying like houses and cars and got married. I must have spent like, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the thing. It just took a little while for me to really, I would say like a year to really kind of understand that you shouldn't be doing that. You should be paying yourself like, very little, like $1 or something, or as little as possible to get by. And then you should be taking all that money and actually reinvesting it into the business. It's actually a little hard. Like when you start hiring employees and stuff like this, because I remember having like, you know, $50,000 payroll, and then this is money that I used to just spend on stuff, like you're actually paying the bills for everything. But you have to understand that that's not an expense. That's like the investment that you're making in yourself and your business. And so basically your question is like, what's that like at a young age to do that? It's jarring. It's like your internal scales are being like readjusted. And it just took me a little while to recalibrate to think more rationally about all this income and using it to bootstrap a business rather than personally enrich myself.
As the business grew and grew and grew and grew, and eventually, you sold the business. What did you learn during that time that was the most, you feel is the most, I guess, profound or the biggest leverage pieces of wisdom that you picked up building that company, selling that company, becoming a person who was able to do that?
There's a couple ideas. So big takeaways from building, a successful business. Number one is what I call like the power of delusional thinking or delusional projection. So when you're getting started, it's kind of hard to attract really great talent because usually the people who are really good already have jobs, and people don't want to leave their good paying stable jobs for a non-paying unstable job or low paying and so it's basically what I'm saying here is the key then is to really kind of present this great vision of a future that's really compelling. Maybe even a little bit like Fire Festival, like that guy Billy McFarland, but maybe he was a little too delusional. But that's definitely important because it's going to do two things. It will, it kind of acts like a filter. So like, 99% of people who you talk to are going to say, this is crazy, like, no thanks. But 1% of them will say, like, sign me up. This is great. I'm in. And that's important because what you're doing is you're finding, like, that 1% is the believers, and those are the only people who can who are capable of turning something intangible and turning it into a reality. So like my early hires, like I pitched this crazy scheme, like this. It's going to be great. I said we're going to create $100 million business. Like in retrospect, I should have shot higher, because like we created almost a $200 million business. You see what I'm saying? But at the time, I thought that those numbers were insane. Like completely, like internally, I was thinking like, well, you keep your doubts to yourself, of course, but internally, I'm thinking like, wow, I don't even know if this is possible, but like, yeah, this is kind of our goal, right? But it's kind of like that vision will allow you to attract the talent and the investors that in turn will that vision into a reality. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Beyond that, a couple other key learnings is that most of the work that you do is, you think that it's going to help the business, but most of it doesn't. Like we do a lot of work, and I can point to just a few things that really made the company what it is. For example, one blogging campaign. So like I've written thousands of articles, but one of them, generated millions of press pickups, or sorry, 10,000 press pickups internationally, and millions of inbound links for that story, like 1 million, which is insane. And so now if you Google words like AdWords or Google AdWords or keyword tool, like these are very competitive terms where you're organically competing against like Google. Like you might have heard of them. They have a pretty big link profile. You'll find that WordStream actually ranks competitively, like in the top 5 spots for those keywords. And so I call this finding the unicorn, where it's like 1 or 2% of your efforts produces all of the results and all the business benefits, and the remaining 97% of work didn't really produce any tangible benefits. You see what I'm saying? I can just give you one other example. We created this this crazy thing called an AdWords grader. It was like an audit tool for checking to see how you're doing in your online advertising, and it would just download some of your data and give you a report card, and it would score the performance of your account, like the click-through rates and the conversion rates and the cost per conversions. It would benchmark your performance against other similar advertisers in your location and in your industry, because we had graded like hundreds of thousands of accounts, so we could create like these kind of comparable market analysis reports for you. That one thing just took like me and 2 other engineers 3 months to build, and it turned the company from like a $2 or $3 million revenue company to like a company with tens of millions of revenues, like relatively quickly, if you compare it to how much of a slog it was when we were kind of stuck in the low single digit millions. You see what I'm saying? So just we must have like 40, 50 engineers and working on this project for like over a decade. But what I'm saying is like holy moly, like really, like just three guys with 3 months of time, created this one feature that like kind of flipped the business on its head and made it, like really viable for to be able to scale into the tens of millions of dollars. Because it was like a really great lead generation tool. It was also a really great onboarding tool because it kind of gave users a better idea of what it is that the product does, and being able to kind of make the experience understandable in 20 seconds instead of like 2 hours. It was also a great sales prospecting tool because like the sales people would have the perfect information as to like whether or not this is a good fit for for having a conversation with. It was also like a huge barrier to entry, like because we've graded so many millions of accounts. It's just so much better than any other competing technology. Like it just had all these network effects that really made the company like from a software perspective. And I'm just saying, you really have to be honest with yourself and understand, like, yes, the team had really good intentions, but did it have the intended effect on revenues or sales or marketing? And generally speaking, the answer is no. Like it's these rare, unless, have you ever experienced a unicorn on one of these initiatives, Ben? Like where it's like one idea kind of 10x is the business. They're usually very obvious in hindsight. So I believe in the power of what I'm calling a unicorn. These are these remarkable ideas that when executed well, 10x the business. And it is my mission in life to find them and deploy them on behalf of the businesses that I'm growing.
Well, just to answer your question really quickly, live streaming these interviews immediately 10x the reach of the show, like in one fell swoop, and the watch time increased, the number of viewers increased, like that has dramatically made a difference. Not at the size of the one that you created that you were just talking about.
So unicorns is a relative phenomenon. Okay, so what's a unicorn for me is not necessarily a unicorn for you, and what's a unicorn for you is not a unicorn for me. But what I'm saying is that everyone has a unicorn. What I mean is, like, for example, like no matter how good or how crappy your content marketing efforts are, there's going to be like 1 or 2% of the episodes or the blog posts that substantially outperforms like all of the rest of the stuff that you have. And so this brings me to my last kind of key learning. If I was just going to give you 3 of them, which is you really need to identify those unicorns and really try to clone them. I think business people and marketers think they're kind of funny. They have this thing called, I call it donkey delusional disorder, meaning I think they think that every idea that they come up with is genius, and that it's gonna like change the business forever. But in reality, it doesn't really work that way. It's like most of these efforts I'm finding actually have no impact on the business at all. And so when you do find one of these remarkable ideas like 10xing your reach via live streaming, or in my case, like creating a free tool for auditing Google AdWords accounts, like you really need to, what I call, clone the unicorn. So that's just saying, like, don't overthink it. Like, are there other ways that we could kind of, either get more mileage out of this tool, or create something similar, like I created a free keyword research tool. Okay. And it was very simple. It was like you would enter your keyword and it would give you all the results of search keywords and phrases to use, and it would show you the list. And then at the bottom, there was a button that said, like, email me the list in a spreadsheet format. Type in your email and we'll send it to you. And this thing has been used like many millions of times. Again, a 3-month effort with the same 3 engineers and myself, which creates over 50,000 email captures, a month. You see what I'm saying? Like that. There's just so much leverage in these things. What I'm suggesting here is you need to analyze, what worked. And I think this is painful for a lot of marketers because most of their stuff actually doesn't work. But then find the unicorns and kind of copy them and just kind of like Hollywood does this with, like, I don't know, like Sharknado 1 and Sharknado 2 and Sharknado 3. They just kind of find this weird idea and they just keep milking it until it stops working, because it's, because Sharknado has jumped the shark or something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the unicorns and 1 or 2% of your efforts will lead to a tremendous amount of your results, is there a way to bypass doing those other things in order to find the unicorns? Or like how do you specifically engineer your actions to really focus in on those unicorns?
Again, you just look at your own efforts. Okay. You have a unicorn. Okay, Ben, like no matter how crappy your content is, okay, there's going to be some content that does way better than the rest. Like you know that 10% of your blog content is going to generate 60% of the traffic, or 3% of your social media posts generates like 50% of the engagement. So number one is you analyze the campaigns that you've done historically and try to understand what actually worked and what went nowhere. So like if you do a lot of email marketing, look for, and if your average open rate is like 5 or 6%, look for outliers. What I'm talking about is if your average is a 6% open rate, then I'm looking for email campaigns that you've run that are 3 to 5 times more engaging than the average. Like that's like a statistical improbability where we're talking like, 3 standard deviations away from the average, which is like a 1% kind of idea. Okay. Top 1%. So I'm looking for stuff with like 25% open rates or 44% open rates. You see what I'm saying? And then figure out like, what is it about that idea that made it so great? And then I'm just saying, just copy that idea. Just, just give you an example. That one story that I did that got the 1 million links, it was like, it was a blog post about how crappy Facebook ads are compared to Google ads. But I timed it to 3 days prior to the Facebook IPO. And I provided data like showing like all of the costs and the click-through rates and the ROI of these stupid, at the time, Facebook ads were just like ads. Do you remember those things? It was pretty silly, and they didn't have remarketing, and they didn't have, all the things that you would expect from an advertising platform. And I just merely pointed that out and showed the results of their crappy, marketing solutions that they had at the time, and showed how that Google kind of, mopped the floor with them, and that was the story that generated the 10,000 press pickups. And so when Twitter went public, 2 years later, I just copied the same idea. I just said, well, why don't we just do a blog post with some data showing, Twitter ad performance compared to Facebook ad performance, and showing how Facebook mops the floor compared to Twitter. You see something? And I think there's this like human emotion where when someone's about to have their big parade, maybe it's jealousy or something like this, like they like people to be taken down a notch or something like that. And so that was my understanding of, why this blog post did so well. Like people like to, be a little bit controversial, stir the pot a little bit, and say like, no, it's not going to be a great company. It's going to be a terrible company. It's contrarian. So I just cloned the idea literally, and it didn't get tens of thousands of press pickups, but it got 1,000 press pickups. Because there's less interest in Twitter than Facebook. But the recipe was essentially the same, and they both did spectacularly well. Like I was on like Fox Business News, and all sorts of different BBC and NPR talking about Twitter ads. Your question is like, how do you find the unicorns? You already have the unicorns. They're in your data. You just have to find the stuff that's kind of doing unusually well. Like I'm sure you have a tweet once in a while that, whoa, what happened here? It got 300, 500 retweets or something. If the average is usually like 3 or 2, and you just gotta really understand how rare that is, and kind of celebrate them. And kind of clone them. A third way of doing it is just copying others. So like my AdWords grader, I just copied it off HubSpot. HubSpot had a hugely successful website grader, which I think was like a really great bootstrapping tool for them, because it really allowed them to connect with all these website owners who are looking to improve their websites, which was their target audience. So it would give a marketing grade to people's websites, and they would look at your social visibility, your organic visibility, but they didn't do AdWords visibility. They didn't do like paid search visibility, and I was like, that's really interesting. They've kind of given a grade for all these things except for the niche that I'm in, and so I kind of filled out that gap in marketplace, I was reasonably confident that given how successful their marketing grader, website grader was, that I could have a similar result with my AdWords grader, and of course, it turned out to be spectacularly valuable for the business, and you can copy it. Don't do a direct copy though, because if you're just a copy of something that's so great, then it's not going to work, because they're just going to use the pre-existing one. But what I did is I just kind of changed it a little bit. So like, instead of grading your social presence, I'm grading your AdWords accounts or your Facebook performance. You see what I'm saying? And that little kind of variation or on that unicorn idea makes what I call a baby unicorn. It's just sort of like cloning the unicorn.
So why did you decide to go into messaging? Why was that the next evolution of your journey?
So messaging is really interesting. Most communication is done on messaging. Like people overwhelmingly prefer communication via messaging, but yet businesses haven't figured that out yet. They're still sending out email and email marketing and all this stuff. And I just thought, I'm trying to create a $1 billion unicorn. Like I said last time, I should have projected an even bigger vision, because it turned out to be, actually quite achievable. My previous huge audacious goal was to create $100 million business. So this time around, I'm like, I want to do a unicorn, $1 billion valuation company, and it's hard to switch fields. Like I can't come up with like a consumer product startup or something like this, because I have like over a decade of experience in marketing software. So I just was looking around the marketing landscape, and like, what area is, hasn't yet emerged, but has a potential to be a $1 billion business. And if you think about companies like MailChimp or Constant Contact or HubSpot or Marketo, these are all examples of companies with, billion-dollar valuations, or HubSpot is like something like $5 or $6 billion. Twilio is $5 or $6 billion valuations. Um, these are all companies that were based on sort of marketing automation using email as a communication substrate. And so, so like think about HubSpot, how it's like landing page software, blogging, email marketing software, email capture software, drip campaigns for sending out sequences of emails. Like, can you just reimagine that whole stack, using messaging as the underlying communication infrastructure? Because if I'm right, I think that email becomes something like phone calls or fax machines, from 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Um, I think that more business communications is going to be done via messaging instead of these long emails, and especially marketing, which is just so casual. That just screams like messaging, if you ask me. So just it was just cloning the unicorn, like seeing that all the existing unicorns in the marketing space, like were based around sort of email marketing, and wanting to kind of do the same thing, but using messaging as the underlying infrastructure. Currently, we're focusing on Facebook Messenger marketing, but of course, there's many other chat platforms that we want to support, like Google and Apple, and WhatsApp and Instagram. So we think this is a really exciting emerging field. We think that nobody's using this stuff right now, like less than 1% of businesses, but I could see 30, 40, 50% of businesses using chat marketing in the next 5 to 10 years.
I feel like there's one big difference between emails and chat, and that is you can capture somebody's email address, and then you own that email address. I mean, you don't technically own it, but they've given you permission. But it seems like on chat, you're almost relying on the platform, like on Facebook or Instagram or Apple. So how does that obstacle, how are you going to overcome that obstacle?
So for email, you can just go to like a Zoom info and buy a list of like CEO emails for like $50. And you can spam them, and you know what? The open rate for that is going to be like 2%, and you're going to get blacklisted, from those email blasting, first from Gmail. It'll get all your customer communications will be relegated to the spam folder or the promotions tab. Like it is. Sure. So the permission model around some of these chat platforms is more rigid. Basically, you need to get permission to message people. Like it's just kind of like a Facebook group, like how people have to opt into being a member of the Facebook group, and then they're eligible to see those messages. It's the same idea with messaging, and it's just an extra step. You need users to click on a button or something like this. But if not everyone will, but the people who do are going to be like 20 to 100 times more likely to engage with your content. So it's very typical to get an 80% read rate and a 20% click-through rate on a message sent versus via chat, versus 5% open rates for email, and 1% click rates for email. So just what you lose in contact volume, you gain in just engagement. Like I would think of a chat subscriber as being worth 250 times more than an email subscriber in terms of the engagement that it's going to drive. Just I think it's important is to not get hung up with kind of the old way of counting stuff, because those emails, they're just companies are just sending them out, but they're not being read. So I mean, it's just vanity metrics. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel like some companies may be thinking, well, I don't want to invest all this money in getting on Facebook Messenger, and then Facebook shut my account down, and then I'm screwed because I just lost all of that. So how do you reconcile that 1%? And let me just say, by the way, that I love messenger marketing. I think I absolutely agree with you. I think that's 100% the future. I'm just curious as to your perspective on these things.
Yeah, it's a risk. There's some platform dependency, but you know what? If you try to do spam blasting or a very aggressive email marketing on Mailchimp or something like this, if you have more than a 1% complaint rate, they'll automatically shut down your account. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, what else is new? Like, and if and sure, you could move your email list over to, I don't know, Constant Contact or something like that. But by then, the mail clients like Microsoft and Gmail will already have marked your domain as being kind of having a bad sender score. You see what I'm saying? So like, I think it's, if your dream is to be a spammer and just you know and you're like, I don't want to deal, like, because the people who get banned from Facebook are people that are basically spammers, like, or people who have unusually high block rates, like 5%, 8% block rates, can generate a ban. In fact, one of my pages actually got banned. It was kind of I sacrificed the page because in the name of science, I was trying to find out exactly where the limits were, because they don't publish like at 5% block rate your codes. So I needed to kind of understand the algorithms there, but they're not fundamentally different from how any other email provider works, like SendGrid or Mailgun or Mailchimp. So I don't know how it's fundamentally different.
What do you see as the future of marketing? Because very few people have had such a successful journey in the space. What do you see as the future? Where's the market going, and what's your vision of what things are going to be like?
The future of marketing, in my opinion, is more of a intense focus on brand and user experience. Okay, so I think for the last decade or two, there's been an intense kind of focusing on channels, on emerging channels like SEO or SEM or so organic or paid social media, because these are really enormously important channels that didn't exist previously. And basically, I think that the older I've gotten, like, and the more experience I've gathered with these different channels, I thought the success or failure of search marketing was based on a masterful kind of execution in that channel. So like pushing the right buttons, the right settings and stuff like this. Of course, it's important. But over time, I've been able to analyze more and more data on success or failure in these various channels. And what I can tell you is that the success or failure is largely preordained, meaning, like, if you're going to be the pay-per-click advertising manager for Nike, okay, you're going to do fine, right? Because people already want to believe, people already want to buy. There's just so much brand affinity with that brand that you can do no wrong, okay? Like, whereas if you're, doing the most skilled, marketer, for no name brand shoes, you no matter how strong you execute in these channels, it's unlikely to make a difference. So so I guess I was mistaken. I thought it had more to do with like channel execution, which matters a little bit, but I'm just saying the biggest predictors of marketing success or failure are, number one, have they heard of you before? And number, because people who've heard of you before are 3 to 5 times more likely to convert than people who haven't heard of you. And that implies, brand marketing, like, your message, your guarantee, your unique selling proposition, your uh, tagline, like whatever inspirational, memorable message that you have that makes people remember you, like that's extremely important. And the other predictor of success or failure is just click-through rates, believe it or not. So just which is kind of tied into like user experience and stuff like this, like just like a catchy offer with a correspondingly catchy offer that satisfies that initial proposition, something. So just thinking forward, like, if I'm a marketer and I'm trying to think about like what should I be doing for my career, I would be, focusing on, of course, the channels still matter. Like you still need to know what buttons to press, but that's not a strategy. Those are tactics. The future is in crafting that memorable brand experience, and user experience, basically product led growth, and having an incredible product experience that really like Peloton or like these types of companies that have really integrated their marketing like into the product experience. That's the future.
Outside of marketing, what other things do you see moving forward?
Can you be more specific?
Like what other passions do you have outside of marketing? Like what are you ingrained in?
Oh, me personally? Well, I have kids. I have 2 kids. One's 0 years old, and the other is just turned 5 last weekend.
Congratulations.
They're both boys. So like, we're doing one's a special needs kid, and so we're learning a lot about how to raise these kids, and so parenting and that kind of stuff. Um, uh, that's pretty, between that and the uh, and running a new business, it's a pretty full schedule. Um, I would say that also interested in just education. So I do a lot of like guest lecturing at local business schools like Harvard, MIT, Boston University, Northeastern, just in their entrepreneurship tracks, because I think that there's a really important role of entrepreneurship, that I think, in terms of job creation, and helping. So like one thing I'm really proud about at WordStream is that we weren't just hiring people, like we weren't just hiring like the people who already had jobs, and we were hiring people like a year or two out of college that had some evidence of hustle, but not necessarily like all the skills that we needed. And we had internal training departments, and then we were bringing on people like 2 or 3 people a week, something like, and giving people opportunity, and these millennials, they'll stay at a company for like 1 to 3 years, which is pretty typical. But I'm really proud that we were the company that was giving a lot of these young individuals their kind of first chance, and from there, like now they're working at Facebook, or they're working at Google, or they're have their own agencies, and this kind of stuff. So like I'm definitely passionate about entrepreneurship as a force for helping individuals realize their full, like other, like the people that you employ, like helping them realize their full potential and to lead productive lives.
Where do you see the future of entrepreneurship going?
Um, it's right now it's kind of funny. There's a lot of money out there, and there's not a lot of great ideas. So meaning it's kind of like a supply and demand of like entrepreneurs to back and investors to back them, and right now it's kind of an entrepreneur friendly market. So I think what's happening is that a lot of stupid ideas are getting like way farther than they should, like in a normal environment, which is kind of interesting because when I was doing WordStream back in 2008, that was like during the financial crisis. It was the total opposite, where there was like plenty of great ideas that just couldn't find funding. So where does this go? Like, I don't know. If I knew, then I I would invest in accordingly. I think the software is an incredibly, there's never been a better time to be a software entrepreneur right now, like in terms of value creation. Like you can, if you're successful, you can create tens, hundreds of millions of dollars of enterprise value just by just like that. It's pretty crazy.
You mentioned being passionate about education. Do you see big changes in education moving forward?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really appreciated from my college was just there was a heavy emphasis on co-op internships, like just actually working in different environments rather than just only being in the classroom. And so I spent 2 years working at different environments. Like I worked at a Ford Motor Company, like a engine assembly plant, or a nickel mining company like Inco. It's like in Sudbury, Canada. It was a nickel refinery. And these were like fantastic, and they were really horrible experiences for me, and it really got me thinking like I don't want to focus on high voltage stuff. I want to just do software. Like I want to go to an office. I don't want to wear boots to work. So I think I think a lot of these colleges are just a bunch of eggheads, talking about shit that they don't understand. Definitely encourage you to just try to actually work, like offer to work for free for somebody, like just as long as it's like a good mentor, and it's in the space that you want to be in, and just really get your foot in the door and learn by doing, rather than being like one of these. Like I have this roommate who's been he just loves going to school, but he's unemployed. It's ridiculous.
The things that you're doing and creating and the people that you're employing, that's very important in my opinion. And, it seems like you're really just getting started. And I'm interested to learn, what do you see as your legacy moving forward? What do you want to leave behind that's going to last way past the short life that we have?
So, since the beginning of time, people were born and die, and most are unremarked. Like they're forgotten basically, and I believe that to be the case for most everyone here, myself included. So I think you're kind of delusional if you think that anything that we do will truly be like a legacy. That said, I'm tremendously proud of the, giving people a chance. So WordStream, for example, has employed over its 10-year history over 1,000 millennials. Like I've hired about, like, remember the tenure is 1 to 3 years, because they're kind of on the, it's not because the company is bad or anything. It's just, that's kind of the nature of the beast there. Um, a lot of those were their, first or second opportunities, like in the workforce. And I don't know. I can give you one story. like there's the last year I went to a wedding. It was like two word streamers who met in the lunchroom. You see what I'm saying? So, like, that's an example of, like, wait a minute, if I didn't create this business and didn't hire those two people, they would not have gotten together. So it's just I just don't get I wouldn't say it's so much about legacy, but it's more about, like, personal legacy, like what's meaningful to me personally, as opposed to, like, what the world thinks. And I get a kick out of having been able to play a kind of a meaningful, a small meaningful role in people's career trajectories. And I think I'm also pro-immigrant, so I'm not American. Well, I am an American now, but I immigrated here after college. So I think that, like, that's one of the things that we, immigrants should do. You should not just try to create some ghetto of like your old culture, but trying to actively participate and to the betterment of the U.S. economy here, and you can do so by employing other Americans. So probably, actually, there is one other legacy, and that is you're essentially, we become, after death, you live on for a short while in the memories of your children, and so. So there's that. Like, you want to make sure that they remember you fondly and not, and not forget about you. So, or be resentful or something like that. So maybe not necessarily a global domination kind of legacy that you were thinking of, but nevertheless meaningful to me personally.
Larry, I want to thank you so much for coming on this interview and sharing this time with me. It's been very special, and I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
Ben, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. And I want to thank everybody who's watching, listening. Y'all the reason that I do this, and I want to thank y'all very much. Larry, I just have one more question for you, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Is there anything or what question should I be asking you, specifically me, asking specifically you, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
One question that sometimes people ask me is what's it like to have actually built and sold a business for an enormous amount of money, and because that just happened in July. One, it's kind of a relief, because like I was mentioning earlier, you're projecting this great vision and success, but like it has yet to be seen, like until you have the outcome, and along the journey you're kind of putting yourself out there and just really talking about how to be successful at growing your business, and you don't want to be one of those guys who talks about how to grow your business, but then your business goes bankrupt or something like that. Because then you have to be one of those guys who talk about how not to grow a business, which is embarrassing. Beyond that, it's just like it's sort of uh, I I didn't realize when I started that this was going to happen. Okay, so it's so crazy. It's such a great feeling to do this. And if you do have an idea, and you have the skills and the passion to do something similar, or maybe not similar, but something that you're passionate about, and have the skills for, then why the heck not? Like, because um, the mostly people like regret the stuff that they didn't do rather than the stuff that they tried and failed. So just like I'm choosing to be delusional here a second time to believe that lightning can strike in the same place twice, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So just it's just a really incredible journey, and if you're fortunate enough to give that a try, then I highly recommend it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Larry. You want to wrap us up?
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a great day.
Fantastic. And I'll see y'all on the next episode.